4:22 p.m. Briar Hill College, Los Angeles. It was supposed to be a normal day. Mike Tyson had just finished a short interview in the city. He wanted to surprise his son, Xavier, by picking him up for dinner. Xavier was in his second year of college. He was smart, polite, and strong like his dad, but calm and kind. Mike parked his big car near the college office. He sent a text to his son. "I'm here. Meet you in the hall." But Xavier didn't reply. That was strange. Inside the college, the halls were quiet. Some doors were closing, and students were walking out to go home. But one classroom, room B16, had its door a little open. Inside, a teacher named Professor John Caldwell was there. He was in his 50s. Many students didn't like him. He was mean, rude, and punished students for no reason. But only a few people knew how bad he really was, especially to students like Xavier. Right now, Professor Caldwell was standing in the hallway. He was grabbing Xavier's shirt and shouting, "You people think you can talk back, huh? Think you're tough because of who your father is?" Xavier stayed calm and said, "I didn't say anything bad. I just asked why my grade was changed." Smack! A loud sound filled the hall. The professor threw a heavy book at the wall right next to Xavier's head. Then he pushed Xavier hard into the lockers. "You don't ask questions. You take what you're given." Then a deep, scary voice spoke. "Get your hands off my son." The professor stopped right away. He turned around, and there stood a man he had only seen in pictures and on TV. It was Mike Tyson. He stood still. He wasn't yelling, but he looked like a big storm ready to happen. His eyes didn't blink. The professor quickly let go of Xavier. "Mr. Tyson, I didn't know." Mike stopped him. "No," he said. "You did." Mike took a step forward. He didn't raise his fists, but he was ready if he needed to be. "Son," the professor tried to explain. But Mike didn't want to hear it. "You hit my son." His voice got lower. "You put your hands on my child." The hallway was silent. Crack! Mike gave the professor one quick, open-handed slap. The professor flew into the lockers and fell down. He gasped for air. Students nearby stopped. They were shocked. Some took out their phones, but no one said a word. Mike knelt beside the professor. "You like to act tough with kids? Try being tough with someone your own size." The professor was shaking, not because of the pain, but because he realized something. He didn't just mess with the wrong student. He messed with the wrong dad. Mike pulled the professor's tie, brought him close and whispered, "You're lucky I'm walking away. If this happened 10 years ago, you'd need an ambulance." Then Mike stood up, helped his son, and walked away. Behind them, the professor lay on the ground, scared. 5:01 p.m. College parking lot. Mike and Xavier sat in the car. It was quiet. Neither of them spoke. Xavier looked out the window. His cheek was still red from the slap. He felt embarrassed. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. Mike looked at him and said firmly, "Yes, I did. Because I fought bad people before. And that man, he hides behind a teacher's desk. That's worse." Inside the college, things were getting crazy. A short video had gone online. Only 15 seconds long. It showed the professor yelling, the slap, and Mike Tyson walking into view like a hero. There were no punches, no threats, just Mike Tyson's presence, and the mean teacher falling apart. The video's caption said, "When you mess with the wrong kid, and his dad is Mike Tyson." In just 30 minutes, over 2 million people had seen the video. In the college office, the big boss Dean Alan Withers was very angry. The professor hit a student, and then Tyson hit a teacher. But the woman next to him, Ms. Samantha Lee, said calmly, "We already got 4 reports from students. They all say Professor Caldwell started it. And the hallway camera caught the whole thing." "Everything?" the dean asked. "Everything," she said. At home, Mike sat outside on the porch. Xavier was icing his face. "You okay?" Mike asked. "Yeah, just embarrassed." Mike nodded. "Don't be. You stayed calm. You didn't fight back." That's real strength. But I froze, Xavier said. And I walked in, Mike replied. That's why I'm your father. Some fights you don't walk away from. 8:47 p.m. College email inbox. Over 3,000 emails came in from parents, students, and past students. They were all asking, how long has this professor been doing bad things? One email said, he told me I was too street smart, not book smart. I wish I had told someone. Another said, he gave me a 0 for cheating with no proof. When I asked why, he told me, attitude doesn't earn grades. One more said, my brother saw what happened. He said Tyson didn't even punch him. Just showed up, and that was enough. 9:12 p.m. Professor Caldwell's office. The room was dark and empty. He hadn't come back since Mike Tyson slapped him. But now, everyone was talking about him, and not in a good way. Teacher hit student, gets stopped by Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson protects son from a mean professor. Mike Tyson gives a stronger lesson than any classroom. And this was just the beginning. Mike had called his lawyers. They were checking the college's records. He had his team ready to share his side of the story. And he was not going to let anyone forget what happened. 7:43 a.m. College office boardroom. The meeting room was full. No one was talking. Emails had kept coming all night. The teachers were worried. Professor Caldwell wasn't at school. He didn't call. He didn't say sorry. He was just gone. Dean Withers said, this is out of control. We need to fix it fast. But Ms. Lee pushed a thick file toward him. Too late, she said. Inside were papers that showed many students had complained before. But no one did anything. Even a female teacher had quit because Caldwell had treated her badly. We hid all this, Lee said. We let him become this way. On campus, students were done being quiet. Xavier stayed home. But everyone was talking about him, and about his dad. By noon, signs were all over school. We stand with Xavier. No racism in school. Fire Caldwell. A student group posted online. If Caldwell was ever mean to you, now is the time to speak up. And people started sharing. Hundreds of them. Somewhere else, Mike sat with his lawyer. Let me get this straight, Mike said. They knew this man was hurting students, and they did nothing? Nothing, the lawyer said. Even your son's grade complaint was dismissed by Caldwell himself. Mike's eyes narrowed. He hit my son, Mike said. But this is bigger than just us. He's been hurting students for years. It's time to tell the truth. 3 p.m. Mike Tyson's official statement online. It was posted on all his pages. It said, my son was hurt by a teacher who was supposed to help him. That teacher didn't teach. He used his power to scare and hurt. And for too long, no one spoke up. That ends now. I didn't yell. I didn't hit anyone. I just walked in and asked for answers. Now, I want those answers for every student that man tried to hurt. This fight isn't over. It's just starting. So many people cared. In just 3 hours, over 5 million people liked the post I made. Famous people shared it. Helpers and fighters for good causes stood by me. Even better, old students from Briar Hill School, all the way from the year 2010, started sharing their own stories. They showed old screenshots, shared emails, and told the truth. One student said, he told me I didn't belong in a college like Briar Hill. Another said, when I gave a talk about Black history, he called me urban and made fun of me. Someone else said, they told me not to make trouble, so I left the school instead. At 7:12 p.m., the man finally said something. His name was Professor Caldwell. In a shaky phone interview, he said, I was misunderstood. I just have high standards. Some students don't like that. But it was too late. People weren't listening to him anymore. Even the teachers at the school were now turning against him. And then came Mike Tyson. He wasn't finished. At 10 a.m. the next day, in a big room at Briar Hill College called East Conference Hall, the school leaders were having a private meeting. They didn't want the public to see. No cameras. No reporters. They wanted to keep everything quiet. But Mike Tyson walked in. He brought his lawyer and a big pile of papers. The room got very quiet. Dean Withers, the head of the school, looked nervous. He said, "Mr. Tyson, this is a private meeting." Mike said, "Not anymore. You don't get to hide what happened behind rules and papers." He dropped the folder on the table. It made a loud sound. Inside were 32 reports from students, some going back to 2011. Before, people said it was just a mistake or confusion. But now, each paper had a name, a face, a real story. Samantha Lee, a kind teacher sitting at the end of the table, stood up. "I read these," she said. "They're true. We failed our students." The room got quiet again. One board member whispered, "We can't hide this." Another one said, "Not with Tyson here." Then the door opened again. In walked Xavier, Mike Tyson's son. He wasn't required to come. He came because he wanted to speak the truth. He walked to the front of the room. He looked at his dad and nodded. Then he said, "I didn't want this attention. I didn't want to be a headline. But that man, Professor Caldwell, made fun of me in front of the whole class. He didn't do it because of something I did. He did it because of who I am. If my dad hadn't come that day, I don't know what would have happened next. You can't protect people like him anymore." Everyone looked down, because the truth was clear. Sitting behind Xavier were more than a dozen students, old and new, who had also been hurt by Caldwell. Dean Withers stood up and spoke. "We are putting Professor Caldwell on an indefinite break starting now. We will begin a full investigation today." But before anyone could clap, Mike Tyson stood up and said, "Suspension is not enough. People need to see what happened. This school knew, and no one did anything. That's why I'm telling the world now." And he did. That night, Mike Tyson spoke on a live video chat. He sat with students, teachers, and people who care about fairness. He didn't talk about boxing or being famous. He talked about doing what's right. He said, "This isn't about fighting in the ring. This is about fighting for people who don't have a voice." At 10:45 a.m. in Los Angeles, Professor Caldwell sat across from a reporter. He looked pale, but tried to stay strong. He said, "I always push students to do their best. Some of them don't like rules. Tyson's son misunderstood me." The reporter asked, "You were accused of hurting him. What do you say about that?" Caldwell replied, "It's not true. I never touched him." But while he was talking on TV, something else happened. A student named Isabel Cruz shared a video. She called it the video they tried to erase. It was from a school hallway 3 weeks earlier. It showed a different student, a young black boy. In the video, Caldwell was yelling. He grabbed the student's backpack. He pushed him into the lockers and said, "If you don't like how I run things, transfer. I'm not here to help people like you." It was clear. It was real. People saw it and couldn't look away. The video went viral. 10 million people watched it in just 6 hours. TV news stopped showing Caldwell's interview. Online, people said, "He's been doing this for years." This wasn't about teaching. It was about power. Now people understood why Mike Tyson had come to protect his son. At Briar Hill, an emergency meeting was called. Dean Withers stood in front of the group. "Professor Caldwell is fired. He will never work here again. We are also giving a public apology." Samantha Lee added, "We are checking every complaint from the past 15 years. At the Tyson home, Mike and Xavier watched the news. Words scrolled across the screen. "The school was sorry." Xavier said, "I didn't think it would go this far." Mike looked at him with serious eyes. "Change doesn't happen unless someone speaks up. We did this not just for you, but for every student who thought no one would believe them." That night, Mike posted one last message. "This wasn't a fight I asked for, but I'm going to finish it. Let this be a lesson. Power without kindness falls when the truth comes in. You messed with the wrong kid, and the wrong dad showed up." 1 week later at Briar Hill College, something big happened. In the school's big room, lots of people sat down. Students, teachers, parents, old students, and news people. Mike Tyson stood on stage, not as a fighter but as a dad, as someone who told the truth, as a symbol of change. Behind him was a big screen with the words, "Truth doesn't flinch, a conversation on power, race, and change." Mike looked at the crowd. Xavier sat in the front row. Mike said, "When I came to school that day, I didn't know I was walking into something big. All I knew was that my son needed me. Someone was trying to hurt him. People fear me because of how strong I am, because of my anger or my past. But what they should have feared is my purpose." The room was silent. Everyone was listening. I didn't punch anyone that day. I didn't yell. I didn't scare people. I just showed up. And that was enough. Because when you stand between a bully and the person they're hurting, just being there gives power. Everyone clapped and cheered. But the most powerful moment came after. Mike stepped aside and said, "Now I want you to hear from someone else. Someone who lived through this. Someone who stood in that hallway before I ever got there." He pointed to Isabel Cruz, the student who shared the video. She walked on the stage. At first, she felt very nervous. Her hands were shaking a little. But then, she saw Mike standing at the side of the stage. He smiled and gave her a small nod. That made her feel brave. She started to speak. Her voice didn't shake anymore. She said, "I never thought anyone would believe me. But when I saw Mr. Tyson come in to help his son, I started to believe in myself again. He didn't only protect his family. He protected all of us." After she spoke, the students came to take pictures. But they didn't want photos with Mike the famous boxer. They wanted photos with Mike the protector of Briar Hill. That day, something new was announced. It was called the Tyson Initiative. It was a special group made to protect students. They would make sure no teacher or adult used power the wrong way. They would make sure every student had a voice and could speak up. Later that night, Mike was at home. His son, Xavier, gave him a closed envelope. "They gave me this after the event," Xavier said. Mike opened it. Inside was a letter. It said, "Mr. Tyson, we are sorry. You didn't only protect your son. You also protected the honesty of our school. We hope this place becomes safer because you were brave." The letter was signed by the Board of Trustees of Briar Hill College. Mike folded the letter and looked at his son. "That teacher," he said, "he thought he could scare the fight out of you. But all he really did was call me." 48 hours later, the news was on every TV. Mike Tyson's face was there. He was not in a boxing ring. He wasn't promoting a movie. He was sitting in a chair, speaking the truth. The host asked, "Mr. Tyson, when you went into that hallway, did you know this would become a big deal across the country?" Mike shook his head. "No. I just wanted to go to dinner with my son. But when I saw what the teacher was doing, I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving my son there alone." People all across the country watched. Many were touched. Parents sent messages. School leaders took notes. Civil rights groups wanted to help. This wasn't just a big story. It was a call to action. Later that day, at the Education Justice Coalition, Mike sat at a table with teachers, student leaders, and helpers. "It can't stop at just one school," Mike said. "There are kids all over the country going through what my son went through. No cameras. No help. Just silence. Let's give them a voice." That day, they started a big program. It was called Project Guardian. Project Guardian would watch for unfair teachers or school staff, help students report problems secretly, have fast-acting legal teams, work with schools that promise to be honest and fair. Back at Briar Hill College, things were changing fast. Teachers had to learn about racism and how to treat students better. A new system let students give feedback about teachers. And Professor Caldwell? His teaching license was taken away. The school said he should never teach again. He disappeared from the news. But people didn't forget. They remembered what Mike Tyson did that day. Meanwhile, Xavier got invited to speak at a big youth summit in New York City. At first, he wasn't sure. But he went. When he walked onto the stage, lights bright and a big crowd waiting, he didn't flinch. He said, I stood in a hallway with a man twice my size. He was full of hate. But I stood still. I knew my dad was coming. But even more, I knew I didn't deserve to be scared. The crowd stood up and clapped. Loud. Because this wasn't just Xavier Tyson anymore. He was now a symbol. A symbol of standing tall, even when someone tries to knock you down. 9:22 a.m. Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. A big room was full of people. Mike Tyson sat at a table. Lawmakers and leaders sat in front of him. This wasn't a boxing ring, but it was still a place where battles happened. Battles of truth. A senator said, "Mr. Tyson, you started something big. But what do you say to people who think this was just one small thing?" Mike leaned forward. His voice was calm, but strong. One hallway. One teacher. One moment. That's all it took, he said. But what's worse than one bad person is a system that lets it happen again and again. After that, many schools across the country started checking on their teachers. Some teachers quit quietly. Some were being reviewed. Colleges that once stayed quiet were now trying hard to listen. Back at Briar Hill, Assistant Dean Samantha Lee was looking through old files. She found a folder. Caldwell, J. 2008. Inside was a sticky note. It said, "Dismissed complaint. Student dropped out. Handled quietly. No report. No hearing. Just a name. A.K. Monica." That same day, in Oakland, a woman was sitting at her desk. She was in her 30s. Her phone buzzed. A message popped up. "Are you A.K. Monica? We found your name in an old complaint about Professor Caldwell. We'd like to talk to you, if you're ready." She stared at the message, then whispered, "He didn't think I'd ever talk." She picked up the phone. "Tell Mike Tyson I'm ready." 8:37 p.m. A special news interview. Monica Harris was on TV. She hadn't spoken in more than 10 years. But now she was ready. Her voice didn't shake. "He embarrassed me in class for months," she said. "He said people like me didn't belong. He said we only succeeded because people felt sorry for us. I tried to report him. He laughed. I dropped out. I left school. I left my dream. But now I'm taking it back." The host said, "Thank you for speaking, Monica. This is how healing begins." Mike Tyson was watching. He turned to his lawyer. "We're not just fighting bad people," he said. "We're helping people speak out after years of pain. Let's give them a stage. A place to stand." 10 a.m. Briar Hill College Auditorium. The room was packed. Students, teachers, news crews. Everyone came to listen. The banner said, "Justice in Education, listening to the silenced." No one knew what would happen next. Then, two people walked in together. Mike Tyson and Monica Harris. Some people gasped. Others stood up. By the time they reached the front, the whole room was standing. Monica stood at the microphone. She looked around the room. She once sat in those seats, 18 years ago. Back then she had hope. But it was taken from her by one mean professor. Now she is back. She was stronger. "I never got to graduate. I never got to speak. I left thinking it was my fault. But it wasn't. It was the school's silence." She pulled out an old paper. A withdrawal form. "This is what they gave me after Professor Caldwell broke me. I kept it. Not as proof I failed, but as proof that they did." Then she said to the crowd, "But today, I don't stand here broken. I stand here because someone stood up for me." She turned to Mike. "Thank you." Mike took the mic. He looked at the college president, sitting in the front row. "You let Caldwell hurt students here," Mike said. "You watched him scare them, tear them down. But you didn't expect someone would come back to build them up." He turned to Monica. "We're here to make sure they never forget what silence costs." Then something amazing happened. The college president stood up. His hands were shaking. He gave Monica an envelope. He said, "Ms. Monica, we are sorry for what was done to you, for what we let happen. You are being given an honorary degree today. Your file has been corrected." The crowd stood again. Louder this time. It was all on live video. The clips went viral. Mike Tyson brings students back after 15 years. She finally gets justice. Racist professor's actions crushed by the voice he tried to silence. That same day, Monica was invited to speak on big news shows. People listened. She wasn't just a symbol now. She was a survivor, and a strong one. Backstage, she looked at Mike. "I never thought I'd come back to this school," she said. He smiled. "Now you've left your mark. The kind that never fades." 2 months later, National Education Reform Summit, Washington, D.C. A huge room was filled with people. The screen behind the stage read, "Truth, Voice, Change." In the front sat 3 important faces: Mike Tyson, Xavier, Monica Harris. Their story had become more than a news clip. It was a real movement. Monica had now started a new scholarship called the Monica Courage Scholarship. It helped students of color who had faced unfair treatment, but kept going. In the first year, over $2.5 million in donations. Hundreds of students applied. Dozens of colleges joined. Every scholarship had these words written on it: "Your silence was never weakness. Your story is your power." Mike Tyson stepped up to the podium. He wasn't just a boxer or a dad. He was someone who saw something wrong and did something right. He said, "I've thrown punches in a ring that ended fights in seconds. But sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stand still." He paused. "That teacher thought he could hurt my son and no one would stop him. He thought fear was stronger than truth. But he was wrong. When a parent shows up for their child, when a whole community stands for what's right, you don't need to swing to win the fight." The room cheered. Some people cried. After the event, Xavier went to his dad. "You turned something painful into something powerful." Mike smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. "You stood tall first. I just made sure the world saw it." In a little classroom far away, a teacher played a short movie called The Hallway. It told the story of a racist teacher, a student who was hurt, a father who showed up at the right time, and a movement that changed schools, hearts, and lives. At the end, the screen turned black. These words came up: "Real strength isn't about hurting others. It's about standing up when someone else is being hurt. Be the one who walks in." If you like this story, tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more fun adventures and mysteries. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.